You wake up in the dark, not in your room. You don't know where you are. At first, all you hear is breathing, but not your own. Somewhere nearby, a rooster crows. The wood creaks, as if the house is about to fall apart. The air smells of smoke and dampness. You get up and realize the floor beneath your feet is dirt, and the walls are made of wood and clay. There are people outside the door, but they look different. Their clothes are rough, their hands are dirty, their faces are tired. And the strangest thing is, no one is looking at their phones, because they don't exist. You step outside, and the whole world looks as if time has rolled back hundreds of years. And then a thought occurs to you that makes you uneasy. What if this isn't a dream? Welcome to the Middle Ages, and now we'll figure out how people ever survived in this world. Peasants, the basis of the entire world. About 90% of the population were peasants, and they fed the rest of the world. Their lives were completely tied to the land. In the spring, sowing; in the summer, tending the fields; in the fall, harvesting; in the winter, repairing tools and surviving. They used simple tools: a wooden plow, a sickle, a pitchfork. The technology remained virtually unchanged for centuries. The worst thing for a peasant was bad weather. A single rainy or dry season could destroy everything a family had grown all year. And then famine began. Not a food shortage, but real famine, when people ate grass or tree bark. The feudal system, life in levels. Medieval society was strictly divided. The king owned the land formally, but in reality the land was controlled by lords and feudal lords. They distributed land to knights and controlled the peasants. Peasants were not free people in the modern sense. They worked the feudal lord's land, contributed a portion of the harvest-fulfilled duties, and could not simply leave for another city or country. It was a system where your life was determined by birth. If you were born a peasant, you almost certainly would die one. Knights and wars, constant conflict. The Middle Ages were an era where peace was rare. Wars broke out constantly, for land, for power, for inheritance. Knights were professional warriors. They were trained from childhood: swordsmanship, horseback riding discipline. Armor was heavy and expensive, so a knight was not just a soldier, but a wealthy man. Battles often took place not only on the battlefield, but also in the form of castle sieges, which could last for months. One of the largest historical processes was the Crusades, religious wars in which armies traveled great distances for holy purposes. Crusades. But in reality, these were complex political and military conflicts, not just religion. The Church, the power that ruled the world. In the Middle Ages, the Church was the center of life. It influenced morality laws, education, politics. People believed that almost everything in their lives was connected to God's will. The Church explained the world: why it rains, why illnesses occur, why wars occur. Monasteries were the only places where knowledge was preserved. Monks copied books by hand, sometimes working for months on a single one. Without them, much of ancient knowledge would have simply disappeared. Cities, noise, crowded crowd, and crafts. The medieval city was very different from the modern one. The streets were narrow because the houses were built without a plan. Wooden buildings stood close together. In the city, there was no sewer system. Waste was often thrown directly into the street. Animals roamed freely between the houses. Smell was a constant part of life. But it was here that trade flourished. Craftsmen worked right in their homes. Blacksmiths forged metal, bakers baked bread, shoemakers made shoes. Each city had its own markets and fairs, attracting people from surrounding villages. Knowledge, a rare resource. Education in the Middle Ages was a privilege. Most people couldn't read or write. The reason is simple: books were incredibly expensive. Before the printing press, every book was written by hand. This meant months of work, expensive materials, limited copies. Therefore, the main students were monks, children of wealthy families, future officials, and priests. The first universities began to appear in Europe, for example, in Bologna and Paris. Dangers. Life on the edge. Life in the Middle Ages was unpredictable. People faced wars, famine, lack of medicine. Diseases could destroy entire cities. The most terrible catastrophe was the Black Death, a plague pandemic of the 14th century. The Black Death. It claimed millions of lives and completely changed society. After it, economic and social structures in Europe began to gradually change. Final, what we can understand today. The Middle Ages are often called dark, but this is an oversimplification. It was an era of survival, slow progress, shaping the future Europe. People lived hard then, but it was they who laid the foundation for the world we live in today. And if you imagine everything without modern conveniences, it becomes clear. Even ordinary life today is the result of thousands of years of development.